Welcome, everyone, to The Knitting Way, a guide to spiritual self-discovery by Linda Sklonik and Janice McDaniels. Valerie is going to give us our knitting tip this morning.
So this is a little bit of a departure. I have been unrelated watching a couple of music documentaries, which are really interesting to me to hear about the artistic process of creating music. And so one of the bands I watched was Fleetwood Mac, and I learned that Stevie Nicks, the lead singer, crochets, and that she practiced crochet while they were producing one of the albums as a way for her to, process her words and embody the creative process in a different art form, which I thought was really interesting, that she was using fiber arts as a way to enhance her music art. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was so interesting to me. And then I was watching another documentary about reggae and Bob Marley. And one of the producers said, I have to read the quote. He said, "Experience teaches wisdom." And that stuck with me because it's the idea that until you've done it yourself with your hands in your body and tried it, you don't actually, you may learn the technical parts through reading, through watching a video, through, experiencing in a passive way how to do something, but until you've actually done it yourself with your hands in your body, then you don't have that deeper level of wisdom. And we don't often talk about that in the West in terms of like the act of doing is the teacher. And I feel like in the West, we focus on making mistakes more than trying. But that's just sort of my impression of our popular culture.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a work ethic that is missing, perhaps. I remember when I was younger, one of my mom's friend had studied ceramics out in Japan. Mm-hmm. And she was lucky enough to study under a master. And he had her making bowls only for like a whole year before she was allowed to do anything else. And I remember thinking that that's a lot of patience and a lot of work, more so than most of us want to put in. Mm-hmm. And to go from experience to wisdom, is a journey, right? You can't learn anything, to me, until you do it. And then to go from those initial trials to actually becoming very good at something, that takes time. Right? So does that add to what you're saying?
I think so. I think it's a really good compliment to the ideas. And I think when we think about, and you're a musician, so maybe this really resonates with you, but when we think about like creating a song from the ether, right? I don't think about like the first version. And then the second version maybe has a different musicality or different words, or like it's an evolution and an editing and a revising process. And even if we layer those ideas onto our craft of knitting, we can see how we've improved over the lifetime of our projects. And through that process, we've gained skills, we've gained wisdom. I mean, even for me, often when I'm making a new project, I have to start and restart 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. And that's just part of my process. But through the start and the restart, by the time I'm finally like moving forward on the project, I've gained wisdom around the pattern.
So you're saying the act of doing and doing again is what brings the wisdom. You can't just say you got it until you've done it multiple times.
Yeah, there's something for me that I like your friend with the bowls. I have to do the same thing more than one time before I feel like I really have a competency.
Similar to that, I've been playing the recorder with my brother, and for a number of weeks when we were playing together, I kept apologizing for not playing something very well, because I was expecting that someone who had been to Peabody like him and who had was an experienced musician could play something well after maybe 10 practices, 10 times of playing something. And he said, "No, Linda, that's not it. We expect to practice something 1,000 times. That's the only reason why people get good at something. It's not because we've gone to Peabody and we have all this knowledge. It's because we're so passionate about it. We're willing to practice it 1,000 times." And I was like, ah. And so, with knitting, in order to make a sweater, you've certainly made 1,000 stitches, right? So perhaps in knitting, we have that automatic repetition that just happens, and you have to really talk about doing. We're doing over and over and over and over again. And if we're a passionate knitter, then we're accumulating that wisdom.
I think so. I think that it's important to talk about, like, you see the finished sweaters, like, oh, I knit that. But there's all this behind the scenes work that happened, and practice, and maybe ripping out, and maybe starting over and trying again. And just like the musicians, there's time behind the scenes. A sweater is our concert. That's our recital as a knitter.
Yeah,
So,
it's more obvious. The 1,000 efforts, the 1,000 times of practice are more visual, whereas for a musician, it's not. And I forgot, I didn't realize, as an amateur, that that's what it took. But as a knitter, certainly I understand it, and I hadn't connected those two before.
It's so interesting. I love the interdisciplinary approach of like a whole life. Knitting is part of my whole life, and just like I love music, and just like I enjoy other things.
Yeah, it's interesting putting those two together. You're right.
What did you think about the chapter?
Well, my take on the chapter this week is just how kind people have been to me this past week, because I haven't been very accomplished. And my story this week has been with letting other people's kindness come into my life and appreciate it, because I wasn't very prepared for this morning, and you were very kind about it. And you said, well, that's just part of our story. Sometimes being unprepared and letting that be a part of our day, and not taking that as, oh, I did something wrong, but just letting that be part of my story today, letting your kindness be part of my story today. So I guess it is a great gift when I can be kind to somebody else. It does feel really good to do something kind and see that it's been received, right? And so in the same way, definitely, I'm being on the receiving end. You've been kind to me. My son-in-law has been kind to me, helping me understand the intricacies of travel to Canada. So it's been about kindness from different people today, and how that influences my knitting. I'm still thinking about that.
That's so good. Well, we have, I think today is the last day that we're talking about bearing witness, and we're going to move on to the last chapter, chapter 9, in January. So I'm wishing everyone a happy holiday season and the best holiday possible. Time for some reconnection, rejuvenation, and resetting for the new year. And that's my wish.
Yeah, I wish the best for everyone too. And in January, we'll finish up this book and hopefully start another one.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Valerie. Okay, bye.